Hi, gang. I want to talk a little bit more about the details of the remaining assignments that we have in LIS4368, beginning with Assignment 4, culminating in Project 2. So you have Assignment 4, Assignment 5, and Project 2. Assignment 4, Project 1, if you remember, Project 1, we did client-side data validation. And Assignment 4, and now, again, look at the URL here. It indicates the actual page. Assignment 4 does not. It appends a key value pair after a question mark. We'll talk about why that's necessary, and there's other ways you can accomplish this, but we'll show you one way of accomplishing the logic that would allow a user to make different choices in a navigation menu based upon the user selection of a particular link. So assignment number 4 is going to do basic server-side validation. One thing about this, gang, we're not actually going to do all of the required data validation. In a more robust application, what you'd want is that the client-side validation and the server-side validation match identically, and that is they prevent the user from entering data that is not acceptable to the data store. And here in our client-side validation in Project 1, we prevented most of the data that would not have been acceptable to our data store. In Assignment 4, you'll see because of the amount of code that would be necessary, we're keeping this rather simple to just making sure that there is data in the required fields of our table. So in the customer table, the required fields are the first name, last name, the street, city, state, zip, phone, email, balance, total sales, but notes is not required. So if the user tries to submit it, you'll see that the header changes as well as there is a prompt to the user indicating that where data is necessary. So let's go in by showing what it would look like with valid data. So I'm just going to auto-populate this with some dummy data, and then I'm going to submit it. Now you'll notice, look at the URL. It's actually showing that it's going to a servlet, and you'll be able to easily and readily identify that because there is no extension. There is no file extension. It's not going to a .txt file, not going to a .jsp file, not going to a .html file. It's just going to a customer list. And you know from our work earlier that without the extension, that means it's being processed by a servlet. And so what it does here, this is actually calling thanks.jsp. All of this data is actually going to a file called thanks.jsp. You'll see later on when I dissect the code that this is actually being processed to a file called thanks.jsp that can be directly accessed like this. But watch what happens when I hit the enter key. The data automatically goes away because it wasn't processed through the servlet. If I go back, you'll see that the servlet now contains the data, but this, in fact, really is the thanks.jsp file that has been invoked through the servlet. So the servlet calls the thanks.jsp file. We're actually invoking, I should say, instantiating a customer object and passing the attribute values to the thanks.jsp file, which I'll demonstrate in another video. Right now, I just want to do a little comparison of what I gave you and what the directory structure should look like when you finish the assignment. Here's mine, 4368. Here's your student files that you will get when you clone, make the necessary clone statement. And again, as I mentioned to you, gang, in a previous video, when you do the clone, make sure that you should already have a LIS4368 underscore student underscore files subdirectory. So you're going to need to either do one of two things: delete it, or one of three things: delete it, move it to another subdirectory that you have, or directory that you have, or rename it to something else. Because if you try to do git clone and you already have an existing LIS4368 underscore student underscore files, you'll get an error and you won't be able to clone those files. So you need to rename it, move it, or delete it. Okay. So what do you have here? Well, you have, when you clone it, you'll have web INF. And again, what should happen here, gang, is these files here that you have, that I gave you, web INF and I should say meta-INF and web-INF and customer form and thanks, should all go into your 4368 subdirectory. These are the clone files, and what you need to do is copy these subdirectories and files into your 4368 subdirectory. Now, let's look at meta-INF. We open that. Take a look at that quickly. And you'll see that I'll make this code a little bit larger. I'll change the font color, make it larger. There's some comments in there for you, gang. Most importantly, you want to make sure the context path, you don't have to change it. I already gave it to you like that, LIS4368. And here, what we'll need for assignment 5 and project 2 is you'll actually be connecting to a data source. And so what you'll need to do is actually put in your, this is connecting to your database, and the database here will be your FSU ID. The JDBC will be your FSU ID. Your username will be the username that you use to log in to MySQL, as will your password. And the remaining sets of parameters here will stay the same. We'll talk more about this in assignments 5 and project 2. Okay, we got that. Next on the agenda is the web-INF. And in there, I'll compare mine. In there, you'll have the same directory structure. I have a readme.txt file here for you. And all that is indicating is that starting in Servlet 3, there's no web.xml that is required, so you don't need to have a web.xml file in here. But you'll be using annotations instead, which is easier to use and implement. But that didn't start until Tomcat 7. So when Servlet 3 began in Tomcat 7. Before that, we had to have a web.xml file, which made it kind of cumbersome to create web applications in Java server pages and servlets. Since Tomcat 7, it's a lot easier. Also, when you modify the web-INF file, sometimes after compiling it, sometimes you may have to do a restart. Sometimes you may not, but if you're encountering any problems, then what you need to do after you do the compilation is just stop the server, restart it, and everything should work as illustrated in the videos that I'll be providing for you. Okay, that's just a note there. Let's look at the classes. We'll talk more about the compilation of these classes in a second. These are actually packages, you guys, and they have to be in a specific directory structure. So notice that you have your student underscore files web-INF classes that'll actually be moved into your 4368. So 4368 will have web-INF, and that's when we start doing our compilation of these classes. But this is where they should be, and your packages should be in classes. Well, you'll have a package called CRUD. You'll have a sub-package called business, and in there you have a customer.java file, which will have to be compiled. In info, you'll have a servlet customer list servlet.java and a test servlet. We're going to compile the test servlet first so you'll see how that should actually work. If that test servlet works, then your customer list servlet should work too, provided that you did the compilation correctly. Okay. Next, you'll have a lib subdirectory. And in here, I have a README file for you. The lib subdirectory will contain everything that you need for the standard Java server pages tag library. And you'll need that two jar files for that. You'll need the standard implementation jar file and the standard specification jar file, and they'll need to be in the lib subdirectory. You'll see when we start compiling these that they'll need to be there, so we could actually use the Java server pages tags, which makes coding a lot easier. So that'll be there. I already gave that to you. You don't have to do anything to that. Next, you'll have a customer form, which I'll go and do a side-by-side comparison. And next, you'll have a thanks.jsp file, which I'll do a side-by-side comparison. All right, gang, just a brief overview, the directory structures, where they should be. And again, you should have meta-inf and web-inf, customer form, and thanks. All should be inside of your LIS4368 subdirectory. All right, gang, we'll go into more detail of the code comparison in another video.